extra glute training, wonderful desire, whether you're trying to be more athletic, jump higher, run faster, or you just want to have a little more snugness to your jeans, whatever it may be. Extra glute training, great desire. The glute, there's three major pieces to the glute: your maximus, your medius, and your minimus. Most of what people want visually is glute max work. The primary function of the glute max is hip extension. So hip extension is any time that we have a bend in our hip, and our glute max is our prime mover in extending the hips forward again. So anytime we are squatting, we're getting a lot of hip extension. Anytime we're deadlifting, we're getting a ton of hip extension. Glute bridges, running, jumping, all of these things load the glute max very well. The glute max is involved with the other glute related movements, but the medius and the minimus are a bit more predominant. I think that'd be safe to say. So things like abduction, anytime we move the legs apart, leg lifting to the side, and external rotation, anytime our hip is opening upward, right? That external rotation and that abduction are largely driven by the medius and the minimus. Now glute max, they're all three always working together, but your primary glute max function is extension. Medius and minimus are more activated in abduction and external rotation. Now single leg work also fires up the minimus a lot because it's a stabilizer. It really helps and assists the medius. So anytime we're on one leg, so for example our hip extension, let's say heavy deadlift, great glute max involvement. You go single leg, your glute max still has a ton of work, but now we're really pulling in the minimus and medius a lot more. So unstable drills, single leg work, lunging, pistol squats, any kind of that single leg off balance stuff, we're firing up medius and minimus more. Now that's great for function, very minimal in terms of visual impact. The huge majority of the visual impact on your glutes is going to be glute max. Now you want to hit the medius and the minimus as well because they help build some volume underneath so that you still get a better full look, and you want to have width to your glutes as well, not just be this narrow, you don't want a skinny dump truck, you know, that can happen. But you want some width to it, so you want to make sure you're incorporating a little bit of everything, lateral movements to help hit the abductors as well. So thinking about those different types of movements is how you make sure you're hitting your glutes in a variety of ways. So getting in plenty of hip extension work should be happening if you're doing squats, deadlifts, and training regularly and training heavy. You should also probably in your training program already be involving some single leg work to really fire up medius minimus, and some abductor work, whether that's bands around the knees and you're pushing against them, whether that's something like a side-to-side squat, right, where you're moving more laterally, you're dropping out, catching on that side, anything that has you moving side to side, jumping side to side, shuffling back and forth, fires up a lot more medius and minimus. So incorporating that variety is going to be how you're getting a well-rounded glute training approach, right? Now, extra glute work. If your training program has deadlifts or hinges, squats, and any sort of single leg work, you're pretty much hitting your glutes as much as you ought to. And I would argue that because if you are squatting and hinging heavy and challenging, you shouldn't have much juice left in the tank to hit the glutes more. And if you do, you probably didn't hit them that hard during the squats and the hinges. Now, a little bit extra, fine, throw in some extra. The problem is it's hard to get the glutes activated without incorporating all of the same muscles that you used for squats or deadlifts. So what I'm saying is the quads, hamstrings, and low back, it's very difficult to train your glute without training those as well. So a extra glute work would still look like squats or hinges, right? Because those glutes almost always function in conjunction with other muscular patterns, right? So the extra glute work that you would get would almost always be more of the same. And the times you can get closer to isolating the glutes, something like mini band walks side to side, or the abductor machine where you're pushing apart, great, but it is training those smaller, less predominant muscles, the medius and minimus. So it's great, you can do that. Add in some lateral work, some lateral shuffles. It's good for hips, knees, ankles. There's lots of benefits to it. But if you're interested in focusing on your glutes, make sure your squats and deadlifts are heavy, big range of motion, consistent. Maybe add a little bit more mental focus on squeezing those things at the top. And maybe you could add a little bit of extra burnout, some things like single leg glute bridges. But again, single leg glute bridge is accomplishing much of what a deadlift or a single leg Romanian deadlift is accomplishing, right? So you can play around with it, fiddle around, donkey kicks, some things here and there. But largely these are things that you're either doing too light for high repetitions because you saw some fitness influencer doing it. In reality, they should have just been squatting and deadlifting heavy. Whoa. So extra glute work. I love where your head's at. You should do it, but you should do it by making sure your squatting and deadlifting routines are intense enough. And then maybe, throwing in an extra set or two and really driving your mental focus into squeezing that glute at the top when your hips are extending and to finding glute stretch at the bottom. Even playing with your stances, you might find something that hits the glute a little bit more, sometimes a wider stance like a sumo squat or a sumo deadlift. But again, feeling more movement or feeling more strain and work in the glutes typically comes because we're more externally rotated or we're using more medius minimus of the glutes, and again, getting less bang for your buck in terms of noticeable outcome. So throw a little bit extra in if you want, but 95% of your battle is going to be making sure your squats and hinges are aggressive and intentional.